Knocking on the door.
Scaring it.
Hit!
Hit!
Whoa! 1,562 yards, right?
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. You gonna send another one?
Hit! Hit again!
Do it again.
2 in a row.
That bolt is a 60-degree throw, so it's probably a little shorter than what you're used to.
Okay.
Hit again!
Good job.
Nice. You're the third person that has been able to hit it 3 times in a row. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
I got time to send a couple.
Wow.
It's gonna be all like running.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Jake, thank you, man.
Yes, sir. No
That's all I
problem.
got to say is just holy cow.
Kyle.
That was
Hey.
awesome. That was awesome.
Way to go.
Thank you.
Oh, good job. Good job.
Howdy guys, Rex here. We're sitting here in Arizona and we're doing the Guardian match, which is a long-range charity match that they give the proceeds to foster kids getting into better homes, Christian homes. And so we met Kyliegh here, who's a young shooter, and she was burning it down out there, doing a real good job. And so we thought it was interesting to see kind of what your history is on your shooting experience, how you came to first, get into the shooting culture and, practice marksmanship and where it came from and how it all came to be. So, when did you start shooting?
Roughly about 3 years ago.
3 years ago?
Yep.
And what discipline did you start shooting with?
20.
Just rim fires.
Yeah,
Rim fires? Yeah, okay. And so how did that come to be? Did you work mostly on marksmanship at close range, or did you just kind of get turned loose in the woods with a gun? Or how did that deal work out?
We would do our safety rules, and we'd do a safety briefing before, and we would start out close, and gradually, depending on how you are, if you feel comfortable also, you can go further out and further out until you go all the way out to the end.
Okay, cool. And so how did you decide that you wanted to start shooting in the first place? What was the moment in time that you remember where I want to do that?
Mostly from just the day one of me actually starting it, I realized I enjoyed it, and it wasn't just I was doing it because it was something to learn about and for me to be safe. I actually enjoyed being safe and enjoyed doing it and wanted to keep going.
Mhm.
So.
And so it was actually one of your safety classes, I believe, right?
Yeah, she originally came to what our first class is called the Kids Firearms Safety 1.
Okay.
And so that when we talk about accident prevention, we also talk about what not to do if they ever come across an unsecured firearm, and plus we talk about the 4 basic safe gun handling rules, which we implement on the range. Mm-hmm. And so she, came to that class, and then we ended up coming to the range with us, and has natural talent. And I loved her patience, the way she's able to hold the rifle for a good amount of time and stay steady and wait for other shots to go off around her. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as they go off, and then she just, clicks it off safe.
Focus and
Yep.
get the task done.
It was pretty spectacular.
That's cool.
Back. Good job.
Yeah.
Five for five. Magazine in. All the time in
We were visiting earlier over supper that you're a musician as well, right?
Yes.
And what instrument do you play?
I play the euphonium, basically a smaller version of the tuba.
Yep, and we're talking about how there's a lot of similarities between instruments and learning how to play an instrument, and also firearms or anything else that requires discipline and tenacity, and you have to really get into it, and there's a lot of idiosyncrasies to anything that you don't know until you kind of get into it, but it requires a little bit of instruction. You can't just get handed one of those, what's it called?
Euphoniums.
A euphonium. I don't know. But you can't just get handed a euphonium and know instantly kind of what the technique is, right? Mm-hmm. And if a euphonium was more of a dangerous item, then you really have a problem. Now, firearms, like automobiles or other things that are dangerous in life, are something that require a little bit of training to make sure you get done properly, so that you prevent any unnecessary or unwanted damages, correct?
Yes.
So why don't you go ahead and explain firearm safety to the viewers the way that you learned it at his course. What was the thing about his course that you found interesting that got you hooked on shooting firearms?
Well, one, I enjoyed it, and two would be how everything was put together. It was very organized, and it was very simple and very understanding. I didn't have very many questions, and I wasn't confused about anything. It was very, this is what you need to do, and this is, if you feel comfortable, then you can do this. If you don't, then we can do this, and it just goes on how basically you feel.
It's interesting. There's a certain element to puzzle solving, and whatever part of the mind that is, I don't know what it is, that solves puzzles or wants to be curious about like music or other things like that, or that the brain seeks these patterns to find to make order out of the universe. You know what I'm talking about? And so I think that that's a big attraction from Ground Zero for people who have never, because I think we were talking before, and it's not like you guys were like super hardcore, like gunslinging kind of family before this deal. Have you been into shooting before as a family?
No, we were not. We weren't anti-gun, but we weren't necessarily pro-gun either.
Yep.
So we were introduced to Derek's Kids S.A.F.E Foundation as just a means to teach her gun safety. Mm-hmm. From there, it kind of translated to the range, and then she showed a little bit of talent, and so we tried to nurture that, and now we're at a Guardian long range match.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a big deal for us, and it's been a little bit in the making. But no, we had no dealings with guns before we met Derek, and it wasn't even pushed. It wasn't a thing. It was an option. There was 2 separate courses. There was the classroom, and then there's separate course for the firing range. And she wanted to try it, and the rest is history as far as that goes.
You know, it's interesting too. Like when you do start from Ground Zero, and if you have a good instructor who teaches you the fundamentals of the most important parts, which is the discipline of operating things properly, right? And going through those safety rules, the 4 safety rules. And do you teach 4 safety rules?
I do 4.
Okay.
Yeah, so number 1, treat every gun like it's loaded. Number 2, keep your muzzle pointed in a safe direction, which is either up or down. Mm-hmm. I add never at someone else. That's just for the
never
kids.
at anything you don't want to destroy.
Well, I don't talk about destruction because I'm not the NRA.
Sure.
And I'm dealing with 4-year-olds, and I don't need to be talking about destruction, demolition, stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't need to put that into the mind.
No, I'm trying to break it
Give
down.
them ideas.
Well, yeah, I want to make it as simple as I can for them, so that way it's easier for them to take in the information effectively and be able to repeat it.
Yep.
And so number 3, finger straight and off the trigger till my sights are on the target, and I give you that command to fire. I call this my booger picker. Right, and I get a lot of laughs, but it's the one thing that I've had kids that have taken the class from 3 years ago. That's the one thing they remember is that booger picker, which is, trigger discipline is huge for what we do, and muzzle discipline is the same. And then number 4 is make sure my back's up and what is beyond. Mm-hmm. And so it's really important. What we're doing today on the range. We're shooting long range. When these bullets could reach out, upwards of a mile. Yep. It's important that we do have those good safety disciplines and we practice them at all times.
Yeah, and a simple deal could be like a catastrophic event in a high-powered rifle like that. Yeah. And so it's something that's interesting. Like if you pick it up from Ground Zero and learn it properly, you can actually master it very quickly. Whereas if you're just kind of like thrown into the mix haphazardly, like maybe I was in some ways, there's things you have to unlearn. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like there's certain things that you learn that you think is the right way. Like for example, when I learned to play the guitar, I learned an F chord that was crazy because I just read it in a book and I was kind of sort of self-taught. Yeah. And so after a few years of learning it that way, it's really hard to unlearn that. Mm-hmm. So if you get proper, good marksmanship instruction, which apparently by the fruits that you have displayed on hitting the targets all the time. If you do that properly, it's hard. The proof is in the pudding. You know what I mean? That's cool. So basically, you spend most of your time shooting 22s at how far, basically?
I started recently going out to 75 feet, so
you're concentrating primarily on marksmanship. And we're talking at the dinner table how you kind of would set up makeshift courses and stuff out there.
And that was just recently. That was only because we were trying to transition to something bigger than just 22 and short range. So that was the reason behind that. But yeah, that was just recent.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's amazing the plasticity in the mind too, especially when you're younger. If you pick it up, it really is easier to learn things. When you start getting older and you start thinking you know everything, then it's harder to learn things. Then you really, you know what I mean? So that's absorbed as much as you can now while, still young and able to do it, you know what I mean? So it's kind of an interesting deal on how that works with the human mind. So when you're talking about converting from 22 over to the centerfire rifle, because that was kind of a very recent deal, right?
That was very recent, as in yesterday.
yeah.
First time ever?
Yes.
You had different size cartridges you had to feed in the rifle, so the operation was similar but different, right? So you had to learn the feel of the rifle, plus it's heavier, right? So you had to do that, but you still had your marksmanship fundamentals. You knew what you're trying to accomplish, although maybe your techniques to accomplish those fundamentals was a little different. The fundamentals and the objectives were still the same, right?
Yeah.
And so you just transposed that and adapted to this new system.
Yeah.
And just turned in the turrets to get the right firing solution to shoot fire, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty easy if you know how to shoot, isn't it?
Yeah, and then on Friday you get a little practice, and I think since I got that, I kind of understood how the gun worked and made it pretty simple and easy.
Yep.
So.
A lot of that came from pretty good instruction over the course of the last couple of
That's
days.
that's the cool thing about that Guardian match too is it's a very friendly learning kind of atmosphere for folks that want to come in and learn stuff or whatever, or for super hard. There's a lot of hardcore veteran guys there too who have been doing this for a bazillion years, like world class shooting guys and stuff like that, and they share their knowledge and a lot of little sub lessons in each little stage. There's different things to learn, and most of them folks did a pretty good job kind of articulating what the point of it was and how to approach a different situation and how to get the rest. So did you do 22 shooting much like that, where you would have to use like weird resting positions to try to get steady, or how did you typically shoot with the 22?
Mostly, it was just I would start out standing, and then occasionally we go to kneeling, do a couple rounds there, and then we go to prone, and that was the three things that we worked on. Sometimes we wouldn't have all the way time, and we want to focus on one thing for, let's say, kneeling, because the majority of people might be better at that. So.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting, too, that, like, if you practice those basic organic ways, forms of marksmanship, like standing, kneeling, sitting, anytime you have additional support to that, it's just a plus. Yeah. You're already good at just with nothing. So if you have a tree branch or an obstacle to lean over or anything, it's a plus. So it's not actually a problem. I don't know, it's a different way around the barn to kind of sneak up around the backside and attack it where,
I think
most people don't think to do so.
The biggest challenge for us as an organization is when we're on the range, I'm working with multiple kids from different ages, experience levels. So obviously she's my most experienced shooter, most seasoned. And so I have to teach to that lowest common denominator. It could be a 6 or a 7-year-old. And so sometimes it's kind of to do her a disservice, but I'm glad to have her there to get the reps in. And so now now that I've seen this and what truly she can do, we're gonna step it up a notch and evolve.
Well, I'll tell you something on that comment. That's an interesting comment you just mentioned. I just realized something when you said it. I would almost beg to differ somewhat that going through the elementary steps over and over again is actually a good thing.
No, I think
because it solidly reinforces
from a safety standpoint, but sometimes,
or a marksmanship.
Sometimes I can't always get to the prone position like I'd like to because of some kids are struggling with the weight of the rifle, or they're some are hyperactive and so they're not their attention's not always there,
Sure.
which slows down the speed of the class.
It
You know, 'cause-
requires a specific personality set,
Yeah,
an
yeah.
ability to focus and
And
have discipline.
What I really appreciate about her is I can put her on an island by herself, and I trust her, and I trust her with my life, and I trust her with other kids' lives, because I know she's not going to violate those 4 basic safety rules, because they've been thoroughly imprinted in her mind. And so, you know, she waits for the other kids to shoot, and as soon as they're done, then she shoots. You know, at times I have to kind of wait for her, you know, so I can, because I keep everybody on the same shot count and everything like that. So, but it's just because of her patience and her discipline. I mean, it's truly an amazing thing to watch. It really is. And I saw that out here on the range with, you know, you guys, and I can't say enough about the Guardian.
Sure.
I mean, this
is my first time ever visiting too.
I am so thoroughly. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm a supporter, and I would love to, you know, continue with them and see what I can do to kind of help them, because it's all about the kids. You know, I love working with kids. You know, we reached, you know, 5,700 kids this year and taught them at least the 4 basic safety rules, which would save their lives if they ever come across unsecured firearms. So it's something that's near and dear to my heart. And as the president of an organization that works with kids, it's like we're running parallel to each other. So it's pretty awesome.
Another thing you talked about at the table, which I think is very wise, coming from something that's so fundamentally important as to spread the knowledge of just general safety with firearms, because there are a lot of firearms on the face of the earth, whether you like it or whether you don't like it.
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, everyone should have a basic knowledge that bees will sting you, or that grizzly bears will attack you, or that, you know, stepping out in front of a semi is a bad idea, right?
Yeah.
Things like that. So everyone should have basic ideas on how firearms basically operate, what's inherently dangerous about them if operated unsafely, right? And so those things, a lot of times people sequester children away or people away from that, trying to protect them. What they're actually doing is creating a bigger ignorance of how a firearm functions, and the dangerous is actually the dangerous part.
Well, and that's
Knowledge is something, then you can manage it in a safe, effective way and make it not as big of a problem.
And that's what we're trying to do, and that's why we tailor the message the way we do. Is it's not a political thing; it's a safety thing.
Yep.
And I want to reach out to parents that don't have guns in their home, because
Wow.
their kids are going to be more susceptible to that potential accident, because they don't have the knowledge, and
Sure.
they're very inquisitive. And that's why in our classes, like, I want them to ask those what they think are, it might be a stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question.
Not
It comes to
on that
something that
stuff
could
at all.
take their life. And so it's important that, you know, if there's anything that they might have heard or from a friend, or like, I want them to get the good information from me and our organization, because we put in the time and the effort and the research to make this all possible. And so, you know, just because you don't have guns in the home doesn't mean your kids won't come in contact somewhere else.
Yeah.
I hear horror stories all the time. You know, kids that find guns in couch cushions. One thing I also bring up to the parents is if you're going to take your kids over to a house for the first time, is ask the parents if they have unsecured firearms in the home. And the reason I say that is because you don't want them driving around drunk with your kids in the car. Same principle. I mean, both could be fatal.
Yeah, so it's interesting, like when you talk about the firearms and keeping it apolitical, like don't even get into them weeds, because you carry baggage that's unnecessary, and that honestly has nothing to do with that particular topic. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
That particular topic should be universal. Like, if you see one, that's reality. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Whether you like it or you don't like it doesn't matter. But they do exist, and so if you see one, how is it managed? And the best way to learn how to do that, in some cases, is kind of a program. What you're doing, showing how they work, showing what they are, showing that they're a serious deal. It's not a toy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes that's what happens in a lot of places, is folks don't understand that because of a lack of exposure at all, or like total hidden. The only thing they see is like the shoot 'em up video games or the movies where everyone's pointing them at everybody and shooting all the time, you know, and ducking under the couch and shooting, and it's like a fun recreational type thing that they see mom and dad enjoying, like all this kind of stuff going down, like Rambo 3 on the computer or whatever movie that is.
Yeah.
You know, so it's entertaining kind of, but it's not maybe the best way to be. It's not the best liaison of how firearms should be handled in the world, right?
And that's the only example a lot of kids get.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
not.
that's unfortunate.
How boring would a movie be about some person that was like operating perfectly safe and shooting the, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's what
well,
I
maybe
say.
not.
Like,
Maybe it would be that point.
there's nothing sexy about what we do, but I mean it's about safety.
Yeah.
Like I have good friends in the industry. That's what they do. They run and gun, and that's what they do. But I'm the safety guy, and so they can do. That's kind of their niche. My niche is working with the kids because of the way I can relate to the kids. I think that's what makes us so successful. Is it takes a special type of person to be able to get down to their level and not talk to them or talk at them instead of talk to them.
You got to remember what it was like when we were there.
Yeah, for sure.
And how would I want to be communicating with? It needs to be fun.
And I bring in relevant stories of me growing up. Like I talk about my father. My father, at rest in peace, he gave me a 870 Wingmaster when I was 5 years old. Right, the first time, and I have this gun with me every class, and I tell this story every time is kind of in memory of him. And I tell about this 870 Wingmaster about how the first time I shot it, I cried. He gave it to me when I was 5. The first time I shot it, I cried. And the kids laugh, ha ha ha. And I was like, the reason I wasn't holding it properly. There was no gun safety back in my day, so I had the stock underneath my arm. I was kind of like this, and so I showed them how to shoulder the shotgun, finger out the trigger, point it in a safe direction. So I can incorporate 3 or 4 of those basic safety rules without them even knowing it.
Yeah, telling a story.
And telling a story
is the most effective way to communicate a concept sometimes.
And then I go to the break action, and I tell them the same story. My dad gave me this shotgun when I was 5 years old. First time I shot it, I cried. And then I tell them that a couple years ago I was working with some kids. I was showing them how, and it has one trigger, and I loaded both chambers, and I fired, and both barrels went off at the same time. And I said I almost cried again, and the kids start laughing because they could just picture themselves being on the range with me and that gun, and I almost crying. And so I just use that story to kind of just drill in, just make it kind of relevant to the dangers of what could happen if they mishandle a firearm.
So you show up to the Guardian match for the first time ever shooting a centerfire rifle?
Yes.
First time ever shooting a scoped rifle?
No. I shot one other time with a scope.
One other time?
Yes.
At a range of about 75 feet.
Yeah.
Okay. So but the sights is a similar concept to the scope, but it's executed differently, right?
Yes.
So when you came to the Guardian match shooting, what rifle are you shooting?
5.6 Creedmoor.
6.5 Creedmoor.
Yep, okay. And it's kind of a heavy rifle, right?
Kind of,
Bolt
yeah.
action, right?
Yep.
Yep. And you got a big scope on there with all these knobs and adjustments and stuff, right?
Yep.
So was that something you had to tackle all in this deal when you came here?
Yes.
Like, what's this knob for? What's this knob for?
Yes.
You had someone kind of walk you through it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's
Yeah,
cool.
it was an adventure, quite the learning curve for sure.
Up and down and left and right,
Yeah,
right?
she was given the crash course by Travis. I'm gonna butcher his last name, Travis Ishida.
Okay.
And he gave her the crash course, and then gave her a couple hours with his time, and then he
Yep.
moved on. And Gary Larson stepped in and got her shooting within the first 4 hours. She was hitting 1,000 yards. So it was an incredible experience to go from 22 rimfire at 50 feet to 1,000 yards in one day.
Yeah.
In 4 hours.
Yep. That's incredible what you can do when you're listening to good instruction.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm just so proud, and as our organization grows, as she grows, I want to document her because she's kind of right. I mean, to be honest, like the figurehead of what we do because like this is the main staple of safety is right here, and she.
You ever watch Star Wars?
No.
Oh, I was going to do the much responsibility.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't understand. So.
Yeah, but no, it's just it comes down to I mean that everything is encapsulated in her as a person. So I'm just really proud.
No, it's awesome, and you're doing awesome.
Thank
From
you.
what I saw, I was like, wow, she knows what she's doing. When I find out first time ever on a big centerfire rifle, I'm like, what the heck? How did that happen?
Yeah, and then as a side note for anybody watching, it's the biggest issue that we have seen her have moving from a scope so quickly without any practice is getting the downrange target in your sights before you move to that scope and being able to get the view of what
Sure.
you're looking for. So, that's one
Yeah,
of the
there's all
main
kinds
things.
of new stuff to learn
Yeah,
when you're operating that, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, the journey never ends when you're talking about this craft or anything else if you want to really master it.
True.
Whether you're talking about you want to be a doctor maybe when you grow up or some field of biology or you're not sure yet, but whatever it is, you don't have to stop when the book ends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can be like, what about what's over here that's not written yet? Maybe I'll write the bug on it. Or explore further, right?
Yeah.
So the universe never stops going. There's always more stuff to explore. And no matter how good a bullet point list might have you squared away, there's always details in between there that make you better and better and better. And it never gets boring if you want to continue to always get better. So that's what you got to this point so far, right? You weren't satisfied with just kind of hitting the paper.
Yeah.
You wanted to get it real accurate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're going to do pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm excited what you guys got going on with the organization too. And so, like, if folks want to find out what they can do, like if they're curious and they want to have their kids be educated, just in basic firearm safety operation, what to do if you find one, you know, like what's the procedure, who should you talk to? That's like a life-saving deal.
It is.
And so, how do they find out about your curriculum or what you got going on?
Okay, so you can find us on our website. It's kidsafefoundation.org.
Kids Safe Foundation.
Yeah, there's 2 S's, and you can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all under Kids Safe Foundation. We share relevant
So
topics.
Kids plural Safe
Yeah,
Foundation. Where's
yeah.
that? Okay.
And there's no periods or anything like that in that. So
Okay.
and we try to share. You know, we're real positive. Everything we try, we do. The only thing I share that's probably not positive is like if a kid dies, and it's something that's a teachable moment that I want people to
Hard lesson learned.
Unfortunately,
That's a bad
that's the
deal.
unfortunate. But I try to turn a negative into a positive.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean, we're sharing over the supper table too, even stories about like growing up in the Western crazy culture and all the stuff that happens. And just because a guy survived that deal doesn't mean it was like the best idea ever.
No.
You know what I mean? So there's way more wise ways to do things like that. And I think that it's cool with precision shooting. It's an art that demands such discipline and attention of detail to get mastered, or even to be basically competent, that like it's gonna sharpen them. You know what I mean? In so many different ways. It'll exercise so many different parts of the brain, and you'll never get bored with it. Awesome. Anything else you guys want to share? What? I got some questions. I want to know. So, what was the most surprising thing you learned on the range at this match?
That'd be really hard. I learned a lot of stuff, and I had a lot of people that helped me. Probably just learning how to function the gun and learning special techniques like having a bag and helping me and keeping it stable.
Okay, like a toe support bag where you squish it around back here. Yep, yep. Okay. What was the most challenging part?
Most challenging part would probably trying to find all the targets. They start to blend in towards the end of the day.
Sure,
and
with the lighting changes.
Yeah, and when you're trying to kind of hurry and you want to try and be in the time limit, it gets a little challenging.
That's kind of a muscle memory deal in a lot of ways. Also, sometimes if your magnification is way high up, you're looking through like a straw, your field of view gets smaller. Whereas if you back off on your magnification, you see more of the target area.
Yeah.
That's a trick. Another trick is keeping both eyes open, just looking at the target, and then bringing the rifle right there, and you're just boom, right on target. Yeah, so there's all kinds of neat stuff you learn on the way. Yeah, if you guys ever get a chance to come to one of them crazy seminars we do, that'd be awesome.
I need to find out more about those. I'd love to go.
Absolutely.
Check it out.
Yeah, we get real scientific in there, but we have a lot of fun too. So.
Did I hear that? All right, it's 40 hours.
It's a 2-day course.
2 days?
Yeah, so it's like it's 8 hours per day kind of deal.
Good deal.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of online instruction we do too with the 101 series. If you really want to get all crazy nerded out on the science of the stuff, you can watch the Sniper 101 videos. Pretty cool. I used to have crazy long hair. Don't let that distract you. But you got the rock and roll hair too, so.
Oh, it used to be all the way down. This is just laziness.
So he'll be all right with it. But I had the crazy rock and roll hair too. So some people are like, "What the hell is that about?" Well, pardon my French, but yeah,
we get it.
Yeah, the whole deal was a lot of fun, and it was cool to watch not only yourself but you alongside of all these world class. I mean, some of these guys are like world champions. You know what I mean? Who come to the event because of the mix. It's such a unique mix of people, and it facilitates that dynamic learning environment that wouldn't exist if it was just a bunch of guys that were all exactly the same that showed up at the same level. You learn when you experience or have to assist people or learn from other people that are different than you.
Yeah.
That's the learning stuff.
Well, it was like a comforting place to be. You know, I like everyone was so welcoming. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And so it was a great cause.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Yeah,
it
that
was
too.
Tremendous.
Yeah, so I was really excited to be able to meet you guys,
Yeah.
and you and your father and your organization, and it's just like there's more, you know. And you sit in this like echo chamber, like where I'm from, where there's no people, and you wonder if you're the only guy in the world who's into that stuff. But there's other cool people out there who kind of have the same general point of aim in terms of some guys want to. Here's another interesting fact too that I like about your guys' general motivation. You're not trying to prove anything or act tough or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
You just want to get really good for your own sake. You're competing against yourself, trying to better yourself. That's a good attitude to have, because once you start beating other people, you're just going to stop right when you get in front of them. Ha ha! I'm perched over you, like a big bird on the branch, pecks on the other bird's heads, like, ha ha, right? So if you stop there, that bird could have flown way up into the sky, but it was too busy worrying about the other birds below it and keeping them down on the tree when it could have been flying around having a good time. So when you have an attitude like that, the whole thing opens up and it's a free place to go and explore. Rock and roll. Well, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, thanks
it was
for
nice to
having
meet you.
Nice meeting you.
And it was nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yep, and it was nice to meet you, sir.
Thank you very much.
And thank you guys for the good visit.
Yeah.
And the adventures.
Yeah.
Lots of adventures.
Lots of adventures on both
B-roll.
sides.
That's
Yep.
B-roll.
B-roll footage. Rock and roll, guys. We'll catch you on the flip side.
Alpha 9 or Tango 1-3, this is Pirate Lizard King.
Indexing hasty solution to 7.
What in the hell are you holding?
It's not
It's an MP49, that's a saw.
Target's got good cover. What's our danger space for a headshot at TRP-5?
Hi, Mom. It's me and my pals. Say hi, guys.
Yeah, dude. Oh, man. You're shorter than I expected.
These are super.